shape the narrative surrounding yourself with your music and putting yourself in front of new fans. I think any artist would want to do that.
Exactly. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Travis, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm very good. Let's figure out where I want to start, actually. I think let's start at the beginning.
Great.
What led you to PR? Was it accidental? Did you plan for this? How did you end here?
Yeah. No, I did not plan on PR. In college, I studied philosophy, politics, and law was my major, and music industry was my minor. I bounced around throughout a bunch of different jobs in dance music, but didn't really find anything that resonated with me that I wanted to pursue for my career. And then when I graduated, it was clear to me that I wanted to be around electronic music that I was passionate about. And I wanted to be at a smaller, kind of scrappy DIY type company rather than a big corporation. But beyond those two things, I didn't really have much of an idea what specifically I wanted to be doing all day, every day. Through chance, I got connected with a great PR agency called Infamous and started working there shortly after I graduated and kind of carved out a niche within the world of PR and promo. And the rest is history.
Amazing. I feel like that's the same story for everyone in this business. We all accidentally ended up here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, how many people could say that like their first job is their last job or like who really ever has it figured out in the beginning? It's always evolving.
I'm 41. I still haven't figured out my career.
There you go.
What led you to electronic music? I always like this one.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I started out as a fan. I think when I personally really started becoming a music fan, it was hip hop. And I was always more into the instrumental side of things than like the lyrics. So I think that's kind of like the bridge to electronic music. But my first concert ever was Diplo's Mad Decent Block Party. They did like a national tour and stopped by the college town near me. And so when I was a freshman in high school, I went to this rave, and it's such a cliche story, but just such an incredible experience that I like got I got the itch and continued to explore, the very vast world of electronic music throughout the next, 10, 15 years up until now. But college was when I really started hearing dance music at parties and having like other friends who were just as into it as I was. And I went to school in Los Angeles, so there's a great electronic music scene there. And yeah, just like going to warehouse parties in LA, really nothing like so special. I don't know. I think it's just the coolest thing. Yeah,
I
I
totally
still
get
love
it.
all sorts of music, like, and I don't really listen to club music at home as much as I used to, but yeah, there's just something about it, man. It's what I think, like a lot, music with lyrics, or the traditional kind of like you go to like a rock show, say, and the whole crowd is staring up at the stage, and the band is songs have lyrics, and it's kind of about the audience understanding the songwriter's experience through their lyrics and kind of like observing them. But when you're at a rave, it's a totally different story. When things started out, the DJ was, tucked away in a corner. They weren't even on the dance floor, let alone up on a stage. And people are dancing, and without lyrics or without many lyrics, there's just room to have your own thoughts. And, the cliche dance floor epiphanies, like, it just really, yeah, I think electronic music, there's more space for your own interpretation, and people can have really interesting and unique experiences listening to electronic music in a way that music with lyrics just can't really do.
Yeah, it has a unique way of like tapping into different emotions. And I feel like
Totally.
the same song can connect with people in multiple different ways.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm.
How about, I feel like that's such a common story. Was it something
It
similar for
is.
you? Yeah, totally.
Very so how I got into it was very different, but there's some similarities there. But I was really into. I mean, where when I grew up, electronic music wasn't really a thing. It was very insanely niche. I got into it before like really the internet craze, or at least the social media craze. And
Mhm.
We used to go and shop at these, like, CD stores where there was just, like, aisles of CDs. I don't know if you ever got to experience that,
Mm-mm,
but
too
there
too
you go to
young.
shopping plazas or malls, and they would have these, like, just the stores dedicated to music, and it was just, like, rows of CDs. But, pop, hip hop, and rock dominated everything at that time, and especially given in South Florida, each of these stores would be kind of arranged based on, like, what cities they were in, on the music.
Got it.
So the
Okay.
main aisles for where we were, like, hip hop and rock, and then there'd be, like, a small area for country, but, like, in the back of this store, there was, like, international sounds, and it was
Mhm.
cool because you could scan the barcode and just, like, listen to them on headphones and decide if you wanna buy it. So me and my friends, just to kill time on weekends or whenever we had off, we'd walk to these stores and spend hours there just listening to stuff because we didn't really have that much money to buy things. And after you dive into all the stuff you would end up in the back of the store. And I just remember seeing these like wild artworks for these like trance CDs. They always had crazy artworks back in like the late 90s. And I would just grab one and scan it. And that's how I got into it early. But since
Ah.
there wasn't a easy way outside of like crate digging and I wasn't a DJ, I didn't deep dive onto it until like years later. I would just grab random CDs with pretty artworks, listen to them at home, and that was it. I didn't know much about the artists outside of a few handful.
Right.
And then like in the early 2000s, maybe around 2003, 2004, we were going to some clubs, but open format DJs would play like big house music records that made like the radio. So like Sonique and what was that other girl that was really big? There was like two or three that made the radio back then. That was it. And someone told me about Club Space in Miami. So when we heard about it, we were pumped because there was like no platform for this in Broward. I grew up like 45 minutes north of Miami. And we drove down one weekend. Oscar G was playing. It was unbelievably, like, life-changing experience because I hadn't even heard his genre before. Like, all I had
Mhm.
heard was, like, trance things and stuff like that. So that really changed everything for me. I think I went every Saturday for, like, a year and a
Uh,
half straight. Just fell in love with the place. This is, like, MySpace era, and then I don't know, I was like, "I gotta work here somehow." Then, I worked at a couple other small clubs, and then I ended up at Space. I did, like, 8 years there before I went off and did my own thing.
how
But
cool.
similar story, we just all discover it in some unique way, and then it just draws us in, right? And then for some of
There's
us, I think we just wanna be more part of it.
totally. Yeah. And with electronic music in particular, I feel like the live component of it, like that's just so key to kind of understanding it, or that's such a like special part of it to where, yeah, you could of course become a huge fan just through, listening at home or in a record shop, but on the dance floor is when it all kind of clicked for me at least. And it's like, oh, I get this. Like I
Same.
get it.
I get
Yeah.
it, I was the same. I mean, my favorite thing is I have, like, playlists of different songs from different eras of my life and stuff, and this career, and I'll go back to certain ones, and, like, a specific track can take me, like, completely, like, photographic memory moment of, like,
Wow.
a specific time. So, like, that first night I walked in Space, I remember everything to the T from waiting in line. I could probably spend an hour describing that night to you.
Oh, sick. Wow.
It's a
How
vividly
incredible.
strong memory.
What was space like in those days?
It
Was
was
it
different. It was insanely different and perfect for that time, like, a lot of people. I don't really like that saying of people going, like, "It used to be better." It was just better for that time. I don't think
yeah,
that model would work today, but, back then, the terrace wasn't the priority, the main room was. So you would get there, it's the downstairs room, pitch black except for a couple disco balls and a strobe light. You could barely see you would only be able to see Oscar or the DJ when the strobe light went on.
I love that.
And, the sound system was just like it shake you to your core. You would feel it while you're waiting in line outside the building. And, people would be in there from, like, open till 5, 6 in the morning, and then he would transition over to the terrace, but the terrace was definitely, like, the second priority of the club at that time.
I see.
And then it evolved over time where people started caring more and more about these sunrise even though they were still doing the sunrise thing and it was going to like noon every weekend or whatever it was just more second priority.
Yeah.
And then it just transitioned and eventually the main room faded away and now it's like I think more of like a live music room.
Hmm. How
But it was
interesting.
cool.
Yeah. That could, I mean, the only city that in the States that I feel like that would work in is Miami, you know? It's you guys really
Um
are carrying a lot of weight, I feel like, for the US scene with this sort of thing. Where else can you
yeah,
get that?
I mean, you can do it in a little bit in Ibiza, not as much as it used to. They've gotten restrictions on the hours, but I think for
Sure.
like the openings and the closing parties, they let them go super late. Obviously, Berlin, I think, actually takes the crown for like marathon parties, even though I think Miami
Totally.
gets all the press from it. But they're like day and night different experiences. They don't really do terraces. It's like warehouse style 2 3 day parties, you know. So it's just totally and the music and everything about it is different. So
Yeah.
I don't really think you can compare them either because it's like an apple and orange thing.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But, you know,
But
if you're limited to here in the States, that's clearly the
I
best you
think
can
that's
get.
probably what makes it special is that it's limited. I think if it was
Yeah,
everywhere, it would just be like another thing.
totally. Yeah.
But it would be cool if maybe there was a few more, spread out around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's a hard sell to the government, like, hey, let people go for 24 hours or more. Like it's
Yeah.
an interesting angle.
Yeah, but, tourism, like, people go to Ibiza for the music, and that's gotta bring in a lot of money for the government as well, but, I'm
Absolutely.
sure headaches come along with it.
So I want to jump around. You mentioned infamous PR.
Mhm.
I mean, I would say it's probably one of the biggest PR agencies. I guess before we go into that, actually, for anyone listening who has no understanding of PR, can you maybe give your elevator pitch of what it is?
For sure. I mean, PR is really about public public publicity, in the context of music. It's often centered around an album release or an artist going on tour, or there's also kind of general, profile building press. But yeah, it's kind of targeting publications and aiming to have them endorse your music, share it with their audience, and yeah, kind of taking like a strategic approach to growth through media. And the type of PR that Infamous specialized in is kind of like a traditional press focused PR, kind of, yeah, online publications, print publications, newspapers, magazines, so on. And I've kind of taken a bit of an expanded view towards PR. I kind of look at things under an umbrella of promotion, and I consider kind of these traditional press targets to fall under PR. But I've kind of expanded to also be servicing playlists, radio, social media, kind of the same principle about getting the music into the hands of these gatekeepers and tastemakers, just kind of like expanding to different mediums. Yeah, that's kind of press in a nutshell, or
Love
PR
it.
in a nutshell, excuse me. Yeah.
Before we dive into what you're doing now, what was like your biggest takeaway from Infamous?
Hmm. I think I'll take a kind of a personal approach to answering this question. I feel that the people I worked with at Infamous were just the best. And I learned that working in like a collaborative environment with like-minded people who have really great ideas and are motivated by the same things you are is just like the best way to do work. Um, so I had a ton of fun while I was there. Met a lot of amazing people at Infamous, clients there, other people within the industry. Um, Great people. Yeah.
Love it. Do you have a favorite campaign that you did while you were there, or one that really stood out?
Yeah. For easy, I think Quartet released Looking at Your Pager under his KH moniker a few years ago. And I took on this campaign maybe a year and a half or 2 years into my time at Infamous. And there was a lot of hard work at the beginning there, and like we had discussed, I wasn't totally certain that this is what I wanted to be doing. But that track had been kind of like an ID at shows and festivals for like the last year. It was a song I probably had, 5 to 10 videos of on my camera roll. And Fortet is one of my favorite artists. So when that kind of fell into place and I realized I was working on a track that I was so in love with an artist that I was so passionate about, it was a very career affirming moment and just, yeah, really cool. Like that's what's really cool to me.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
love that. I feel like we could all look back and there's like specific moments where you're like, all right, this is more of a real career now.
totally. What was it for you?
I was just I just started off as a promoter working at like space,
Uh-huh.
like just, say Travis at the door. I was getting paid like per person and tables. And it was just like like I had left I was like in medical and like a firefighter before all this. And I didn't love it. I was like, I'm going to take a year or two to figure out what I'm going to do before I invest in school. That's a long story, but I was doing this thing. It was like, oh, I can make some money on the weekends and I'll go back to school. I never ended up going back because things just started picking up. But one of the partners at Space had a marketing company, and like I said earlier, I was kind of right at the beginning of that social media boom, and I was really
Mm,
good at it. I was like the average promoter at Space was bringing 30 or 40 people. I used MySpace and Facebook to my advantage. I was averaging like 150, 200 every weekend. Those like unreal numbers, you know. There was only
yeah,
like 2 or 3 of us out of like 50 or 60 promoters that were doing that. And he had a marketing company, one of the partners of Space, and he just offered me a social media job to work with him. So that was it was an invitation to get worked with like a partner at a club that I was so in love with was amazing. And
yeah.
then that just kept opening the more and more doors because like the talent buyer worked in that office. We became tight. Then I started helping him with bookings, and I got an official job as like the assistant talent buyer. I did the marketing director at Space. I did a bunch of roles there before I went up.
You just climb the ladder.
I just kept climbing, but then all those learning experiences kind of probably gave me like the tools that when I left and started my company, I wasn't going in as blind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure there were even things from your previous work in, firefighting and medicine that you still draw from today. I feel like there's lessons everywhere.
Definitely. That seems so long ago now. I don't really remember as much, but the hard work side of what I went through with the boot camp and the schooling and all that, I think it just teaches you to push through stuff, you know?
That's so valuable.
So you leave Infamous, you start Brain and Vat. Tell me what led to that, and then tell me the story behind the name Brain and Vat.
Mhm. Sure, sure. So yeah, I was at Infamous for 3.5 years, and it was great, as I kind of mentioned. But I guess it kind of dawned on me that by scaling things back and kind of going independent, I would be able to scale down my roster and kind of be more intentional with the work I do, kind of like remove a bit of the hustle and bustle that was required to stay profitable at Infamous. Um, and yeah, kind of take a more strategic approach to campaigns. So yeah, it was August of 2024 when I made the leap and decided to do it, and I feel so glad that I did. It's been a really fulfilling experience, and not without its challenges. I Yeah, it's great building something for myself, and yeah, it's been wonderful. The name Brain in a Vat it comes from a philosophy thought experiment that I was like obsessed with in college. If you've seen The Matrix,
I
follow
have.
like you keep that in the back of your mind as a frame of reference, but it's basically saying that uh you know neuroscientists today would tell us that we perceive reality by like electrical impulses firing in our brains to synapses. So like me looking at you on my computer screen is like some precise combination of electrical currents in your brain. And so in theory, if all that stuff could be mapped out, rather than a biological human in a body on Earth, you could be a brain hooked up to wires in a supercomputer in a vat and just experiencing reality as if we were a human on Earth. It could be a simulated reality or being yeah, perception isn't always as it seems. So when it came start time to start branding a vat, I think, yeah, they're just similar principles with promotion and kind of bringing music to people's attention in a kind of subtle way where it doesn't seem forced or inorganic, but rather, yeah, a natural part of their life. And they're kind of serendipitously coming across great new music. And yeah, as the promo agency, we're kind of like pulling those strings behind the scenes, like the supercomputer in the brain in a vat thought experiment.
I love that. I'm a big
Yeah.
Matrix nerd. You
Yeah,
ever
it's
see
the
the
best movie.
Animatrix?
No.
Oh my god, man, it's like a cartoon series that they made
Yeah.
after, like, the 1st or 2nd one, and the DVD or the video of it has, like, 10 or 15, like, micro comics from it, and it really goes deeper into the
That's
original
all.
stories. You should
Okay.
definitely check it out.
I absolutely will. Because the new one
I
was
think
so disappointing.
they made it after the 1st film, and it's really good.
Amazing. Okay. Will do.
Man, I can't believe you started in August of I can't believe it's been a year, by the way. I remember us first talking about it all, by the way.
I
Congrats on
know.
that.
And thank you. And Travis, thank you so much for like all of your help and support throughout it all.
Absolutely,
Everyone
brother.
who's listening to this or watching this right now knows firsthand, but you know, your wisdom and expertise is so valuable and would not be here without your help. So thank you.
No, I'm glad, I'm glad. It's been a privilege to see the journey so far. I can't wait to see where it goes.
Thank you, man.
You answered, like, 3 of my questions in one. So let me jump around.
Sorry about
Let's
that.
no, 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 I love it. It makes it easy for me.
Good.
What do you think the real role this is an interesting question because I've hired a lot of PR over the years for both clubs and artists, work with you and others.
Mhm.
And it's always hard to convince sometimes the other side the necessity of it because the results are very hard to equate.
Yep.
But what do you think that what do you think that role really plays in? And then how do you maybe show or convince an artist or a venue or a label or a client that like how do you show them that this is maybe working beyond like, hey, this is just an article?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I feel, you know, it's totally natural to be skeptical because there's a lot of snake oil salesmen in the music industry. And like you said, it's very difficult to say, oh, this stream is a result of this and kind of like work backwards with causality like that because there's so many factors at play. Yeah, I think a lot of the value of promotion is kind of intangible. There's, of course, the actual eyeballs that are going onto the article or into the playlist, and of course, there's lots of value there. But I think like the real value, like the thing that maybe people don't understand, is the reputational benefits. The people I'm pitching to aren't just the people who are, you know, selecting songs to go in a playlist or be written about. These are like cultural tastemakers, and their audience, whether it's people that are like explicitly following them on social media for their music picks, or you know, a fan of a radio station who has no idea who it is who's choosing the playlist but loves it nevertheless. Um, these particular people are people that you want to have in your corner, and kind of gaining their fandom, gaining their endorsement will open up a lot of additional doors. Yeah, I think it's kind of about targeting the right people to gain cultural momentum that is beyond that kind of direct reach of the campaign itself. You kind of want things to start snowballing, and you know, I'm kicking my feet up, and you know, all of the people who I've pitched to are now doing the work of sharing the music, and then those people are sharing it with their friends, and that's what you're looking for.
It's a bit of a spider web effect, right?
Right, totally.
What do you think the biggest misconception of PR is?
That it has to be traditional legacy press, and you know, I guess that's what it was for quite some time, but people, not as many people discover their new music each week by reading, you know, Rolling Stone or Billboard as they used to, and you know, let alone like Pitchfork or Accelerator, RA. But yeah, as technology has changed and like the music industry has changed, there have been all these new mediums that pop up where people are discovering music. And my specialty, I think, is yeah, I've been kind of like filling those holes to stay on the cutting edge of PR and like where music gets discovered, rather than kind of falling into a cycle of pitching the same people that may not have the same kind of weight that they used to carry.
Makes sense. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely see that trend a lot. I don't think the blog style or magazine style is gonna go away because I think there's still like a street credit or like a personal glory to getting those legacies writing about you, but I do see everything's so short form now that you really need to prioritize that type of medium over, I think, the legacy style.
Yeah. It also depends on your goals. Like not everyone comes to me wanting the same thing. Sometimes it's very centered around, driving streams to a particular track. And in that case, I would focus more on, yeah, these kind of media like playlists themselves or social media where people are pretty, close to the clicking and actually streaming the track.
Mhm.
But just as valid is an artist who is looking to grow their profile and or maybe early on in their career, and getting the endorsements from legacy media at that point is super valuable to kind of like bring them to the next level and open up new doors. And yeah, so it's not a one size fits all approach by any means. It's really important to understand the goals of the campaign, the niche that the artist and the music lives in, um, and like yeah, just have an understanding of the world that you're operating in, rather than kind of like blindly throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Makes sense. And then, working with the artists or their teams, how do you evaluate if they're actually ready for PR today?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's just about anyone I think could benefit from PR, whether they are at an early stage in their career or they're selling closing out Coachella. I think really it's a matter of uh, budget and priority. Not every artist has the money to spend, and when budget is limited, every dollar counts. So you want to be really intentional with how you spend it, and making sure you're getting return on your investment. So yeah, I guess I don't think that there's like criteria for artists like that would or would not be a good fit for PR. However, I do think that financially, some artists would be stretching themselves too thin and kind of putting themselves in a vulnerable position by investing in it too soon, or when there aren't kind of other things in place as well. Like PR, it's not a silver bullet. Like, it's not like it's the one thing that you should be focusing on and it will kind of cover all your bases. Having a manager on your team is so important. Working with a label can be really valuable. That there's lots of specialists within PR, and you could kind of choose to focus on various spaces within that. So yeah, I think those are kind of the more important things to consider, rather than like, oh, I'm a new artist, this isn't right for me, or oh, I'm already established, this isn't right for me. Being able to kind of go in there with intentionality and shape the narrative surrounding yourself with your music, and putting yourself in front of new fans. I think any artist would want to do that.
Makes sense. And then, do you recall a time you had to turn away a client or give them like brutally honest feedback about their career stage? You don't have to name anybody.
Like, yeah, sometimes I have to turn away a campaign when I'm not so confident that I'll be able to deliver results on the music. So yeah, I have to balance my relationships with my clients, the artists and record labels I work with, as well as like the tastemakers who I'm pitching the music to. And if it's music that I don't think will land well, I don't want to be sending it to these tastemaker contacts of mine, because then I lose value to them. And if I send them shitty music too many weeks in a row, then they are just going to stop opening my pitches.
Makes
And
sense.
so, yeah, I need to kind of continue to have value to these people who I'm sending music and send them music that they like so that when they see an email from me in their inbox on a Friday morning, they're, clicking right into it to listen to the music because they know it's going to be to their taste.
I deal with that a lot on the management or even just being like a nice person to artists, where someone might be like, "Oh, I know you have a relationship with this label. Can you send this music or my
Yeah.
artist?" And I'll listen to it and I'll be like, "I don't think it fits that label." And in their head, or the dream is to get maybe signed on this specific label, that they get so clouded on that dream that they don't realize something doesn't fit. And I might do it one time to show them, like, "Hey, it's not going to get signed." But then if I have to keep doing it for them, eventually I've learned that that label will stop replying about that artist. And I tell them
Right.
that, like, "Hey, you don't wanna close that door because maybe one day you will have that track for them."
Absolutely. Yeah. From the artist's point of view, and then from your own as well. I guess, yeah, it's a difficult thing to kind of balance. But you and I have our own reputations outside of our clients, to
Of course.
consider. And yeah, sometimes you're put in those tough situations.
Sometimes it's better to be brutally honest, I've learned, to pull the Band-Aid off. They might not like it on the immediate hearing it, but on the long term, they're usually pretty thankful for it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm sure there are plenty of managers out there who don't want to have those hard conversations and will string their client along. And yeah, I bet that just leads to much more disappointment down the
Yeah,
road.
the fallout from it is usually worse. Um And then, you also lose trust, you know? Sometimes being
Totally.
brutally honest, like, they don't wanna hear it, and they'll maybe be mad at you that day, but on the long term, they know, like, "Hey, this person always, is gonna give me a real answer."
Yeah, totally.
So
I, I feel in our profession, especially, it can be difficult because and oftentimes part of what goes into it, making a great artist is high levels of emotion. And, I think that sometimes artists don't like hearing negative feedback about their art, understandably so. But I guess that is part of the job description, is being that person to
100%.
do that job.
Yeah, I think that makes the difference of the people who will last longer in this business is the ones who can break both the good and the bad news. What do you think makes a successful relationship between PR and artists or their team?
I think just strong communication. Yeah, as long as I'm able to get a hold of the artist and their team, any troubles that pop up can be remedied pretty quickly. When I find myself running into trouble is when I don't hear back from people when I'm needing things from them. And you can only send so many emails and texts and calls before you just throw up your hands and say, I've done what I've done. And so, yeah, I think if you're going to be investing in this sort of thing, be sure that you're ready to give it all that give the PR everything that it needs to set you up for success. So, yeah, when they call you, it's usually for good reason. And yeah, communication is always.
Good to know. And
Yeah.
then I guess oh, sorry.
And then, further to that point, I think communication about goals and expectations is also really important. Having a conversation about, yeah, like what are the dream targets the client would like to see landed on this campaign. Uh, reference tracks that are in a similar genre lane to the music we're pushing. Just kind of even answering seemingly silly questions such as like, what genre is this? All these pieces of information help me understand where my client is coming from, and then I can formulate the campaign, to fit that. So the more information, the better for me, I'd say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I could definitely tell you the campaigns where we had the most amount of information to hand over to whoever was handling our PR had the best result.
Yeah, totally.
how do you navigate situations where an artist wants immediate press coverage? And actually, I guess leading into that, maybe just lay out like that expectation in general, like, how long before you see the campaigns really start rolling out should an artist expect?
Yeah. So it depends. I think, well, a standard kind of campaign timeline gets confirmed 10 weeks before a release date. And so there's maybe 2 weeks or so of that kind of communication where we're exchanging the assets that I need to kind of formulate the pitch and start research and run the campaign. And then I kind of begin pitching 2 weeks, or sorry, 2 months out of the release date. And yeah, it does take time to send out the pitches, send follow up to the pitches. If you get a response, there's often coordination back and forth to find time to schedule the interview, to connect the artist with the journalists. And so, yeah, these things definitely take time. Once the article's written, it has to get edited and approved and then published. So I think, yeah, having an understanding that there's like a whole big editorial machine behind the scenes of these publications that we can't really control is useful in setting expectations about timing. And then beyond that, I think for newer artists, sometimes it takes multiple rounds of pitching to like break through to a tastemaker. I think consciously or subconsciously, it's an uphill battle landing music with to someone who has never heard of the artist you're pitching. I think just, yeah, familiarity is like a great first step towards like liking something. And so, yeah, maybe you have trouble on the first release. By the time you're sending the next one, a month later, the kind of initial seal has been broken, and there's, yeah, kind of progress continues to build. Um,
Makes
so be patient. Yes.
Is there a minimum amount of commitment you require from an artist and their team? And is there an ideal amount of time?
So yeah, for standard traditional press pitching to journalists, that's the longest lead time that I need. And so, yeah, if I'm running a campaign and this is a part of it, I don't like to take on any campaigns under 2 months. Kind of for that reason, I need time to be able to send out the pitches and land the wins. It's just 1 month or less is not enough time. Things are very rushed. Um, However, with the kind of other services that I offer, these kind of newer mediums, those are more release oriented and a kind of much shorter campaign life cycle because it's more music focused. I'm pitching the music to a DJ or to a radio programmer or a playlist curator. It's less narrative driven as opposed to pitching for an interview or a feature in a magazine. There often has to be a story to tell. If it's just another single or EP release for an artist like they do every month, that can be a tough pitch to a journalist, but not so much to these other groups of people. So for those campaigns, it's more like a month lead time is ideal to get everything sorted ahead of time and formulate pitches and target lists. But press is definitely the longest lead time of the group. That takes some time.
Makes sense. And then, do you think the industry is currently relying too much on hype cycles rather than long-term artist development?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know whose fault. I don't know if it's the industry's fault or consume. That's just how people consume music now, and the industry is kind of reacting to that. That is
I
like
think
the status quo, and it's a little bit troubling.
I think that's the case with a lot of stuff. I'll see a lot of comments where people complain about where things are at, whether it's from a festival standpoint, club standpoint, music standpoint. But at the end of the day, I'm always like, I think the labels and promoters are given a lot of credit for being tastemakers, but really most often they're following trends to pay the bills.
Yes, yes,
And
100%.
because being a tastemaker is a losing model most of the time.
That's a great point.
How do you see AI affecting your business, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I hesitate to. Yeah, it's such a polarizing topic, and especially in an industry like ours with art and creativity, I think that there's a lot of really important conversations to be had there. But in all honesty, I mean, AI has been massive in enabling me to grow this business. Uh, yeah, I kind of I use it strategically in the parts of my workflow that are monotonous and non-personal and predictable and repeated. Things like generating reports for my campaigns, collecting all the placements and putting that on a document to send to clients. That is a great use case for AI, I think, as opposed to using AI to craft my pitch emails. That's I think where you're going to run into trouble. I'd rather take the time saved on the boring numbers, bullshit stuff, and put that back into these parts of my work where humanity is high leverage, like putting together a personalized pitch really helps. Me being the person who's like combing through all these playlists and collecting wins as opposed to a computer is not no difference. If anything, the computer is better because it maybe is not missing things that I do due to human error. So I think what AI is going to do for the industry is allow for more businesses like mine to pop up that are, very niche and small and agile. And, by keeping things lean and utilizing AI, uh, yeah, I just feel like I have a lot of mobility and an ability to just do things that I never would have imagined possible before. I know that's very vague.
No, no, it makes sense, and I mean, a lot of that aligns with me. I use AI a lot. I'm small, we don't have a lot of staff. I use it a lot for research, and then I use it once I flush out my ideas, I'll sometimes put it in the AI and be like, "What am I missing?" Because maybe
Yeah,
it'll shoot out an angle, but I'm not using it to replace my writing, and I'm be getting a lot of bios and different things from artists or promoters or people we
you
work
can
with, and
tell.
I can
You
just
can
tell
tell.
immediately, and I'm like,
Totally.
"Man," I told him, I go, "If you think you're gonna crush it and being just a copy, you're not. Like, in this
Yeah,
in the world of AI, I'm a strong believer. It's one of the reasons I'm leaning more into this kind of content too, and my personal content. And I just think those with the individual voices are going to excel in that world.
a million. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I think as algorithms and like AI slop kind of like gain prevalence and the new AI slop is just like slop of slop, I think humanity, whether it's writing a bio yourself or curating a playlist yourself or sending music to a friend yourself, these things are going to really matter a lot. Yeah, consuming a playlist made by a person is going to feel a lot different than consuming a playlist made by an algorithm. And I think that's hopefully that can be something that's reassuring to artists who maybe are looking down the barrel of AI and wondering if they're going to be out of a job. I really don't
I
think
don't think
so.
so.
I think art and taste are so human that I think we are going to be able to instantly recognize when it's artificial
I
versus
think more
not.
likely the boom will continue with it all, and it'll feel like we're about to all get replaced, and then very quickly, and if not, it's already happening. You're just gonna get bored of that rhetoric. Like, I see these AI videos all the time, and and I know it's gonna get more and more real, but it's just never gonna have that personal touch, and
No, I
it's just never gonna be able to replicate that. It might get close, but then us humans, more unique voices are just gonna keep standing out. I think
absolutely.
if you're a person with nothing to say and you're an artist with nothing to make, it's probably gonna feel like it's gonna take your job because it is.
Well said. Well said.
Um, any press strategy you've ever done where it just completely flopped? And if so, what did you take away from it?
I
Or press
think,
campaign, I should say.
yeah, no, I've never had any that have completely flopped. I'm knocking on wood right now. And I think in large part that's because I'm kind of filtering in the campaigns as they come to me. I won't take on work that I don't think I can do a great job on. But with that being said, there have certainly been some campaigns where the initial results are not as strong as I think they should be or could be. And, in those cases, I kind of just like head back to the drawing board and, you know, try and find a slightly different micro niche to target or a different angle to pitch. But yeah, I mean, I believe that there's like an audience out there for every campaign that I'm taking on. And, I'm not going to stop pitching it until it gets to a place that I'm comfortable with. Yeah.
How do you navigate that hard conversation with the teams if they're, I guess, it could
It's a
have gone
great question.
better, or they're disappointed by it,
Yeah.
or
Well, before I answer that question, I'll say I get in my head about this often, where it'll be a Friday. So I'll send songs come out on Fridays, right? And so I send my first report the end of the day on Friday, and so my Fridays are very, I'm refreshing playlists and I'm collecting these wins, and so yeah, if I'm not seeing a lot of wins coming in for a given campaign, I can get real anxious about that, and I don't want to disappoint my clients. But I can't tell you, on multiple occasions I've like really freaked myself out about this, and I contemplated like apologizing in advance or kind of like trying to, yeah, make excuses or yeah, just like soften the blow. But then I just send the report as I normally would, and the client is like thrilled with the results and they are like super happy. And so yeah, I think you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by like apologizing for your results before anyone is upset with them, first off.
makes sense.
Yeah. Second off, in terms of those conversations, well, I try to have those conversations before the campaign kicks off, really. I think by the time the client has paid you and they're expecting a certain thing and then it doesn't come, they're already quite upset. And so instead, what I've learned to do is just be as transparent as possible before the campaign is signed about, what results I expect that can be achieved and just what the service is. So there's like, total understanding about what's, going to happen here. And by kind of setting expectations from the get go, I've found that I haven't had to have many of those hard conversations. But when they do, I'm really just reassuring the client, hey, our initial pickup was a bit slower than anticipated, but I'm going to come back next week and hit the ground running, sending out more pitches. And people are usually pretty understanding of that.
Makes sense. I think I always tell people this, like being insane over if you're overly transparent, you avoid a lot of disappointments.
Absolutely. My dad gave me some great business advice a long time ago that stuck with me about you could screw someone over once, maybe someone paid me for a campaign and I didn't work hard and okay, I got my thousand, I got my fee collected, but then they're of course never going to come back and they're going to go and tell everyone that you do bad work and it's not going to be long before no one's coming to you for business. And on the flip side of that, only doing good work and taking pride in the work that I do is the best new business pipeline I could ever ask for. I mean, my whole roster is returning clients and referrals. I haven't done any new business outreach since I launched the agency a year ago. Um, and so I firmly believe that just like being honest, doing good work, and like having a transparent relationship in business is the key to success.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. 10 years from now, what do you want people to say about Brandon Vat?
You know, I don't care at all about the mass like Brandon Avat being any kind of household name. What's important to me, or what I would like for Brandon Avat to be, is something respected by the people who I respect and look up to in this industry. And like, yeah, that's a kind of difficult thing to articulate, even for my own like understanding. But yeah, I'm just kind of like led with authenticity and like my taste and my interests and my passions, and let that kind of like guide my career so far. And it's gotten me to this great place that I'm so happy to be in. And so I plan to continue to do that with Brandon Avat. And I just want to have an impact on this like culture and community that means so much to me. And I'm so interested in, to be one of these people that I just think is so cool, is all that I could ever like hope to achieve. And like, that's the mark I kind of want to leave on the industry is, yeah, being like a solid institution that uplifts artists and is not sacrificing anything for kind of a purely profit like focused lens. Like, want to work on stuff that I think is cool, and I think that's going to be how I leave my legacy. And the people who think that that's cool are the people that I'm interested in impressing.
I love that.
Yeah,
I really do.
it's interesting that being on like the business, like the B2B side of the industry, where our clients are so public facing. It's a I guess probably a different type of person is attracted to our sort of work versus being the person behind the decks. But
I love
yeah,
being behind the curtain. This stuff now that I'm doing with the content is I'm still struggling with the putting myself out there like that.
understandable. But like, oh my God, what an amazing legacy you're going to leave behind. Like, these videos are going to be around forever. You know, the work you're doing is going to continue to have positive impacts.
I hope so.
Um, for sure. For
I
sure.
want to leave it with one final thing. I think most of the people watching this probably won't be able to afford you for a bit.
Sure.
So they're up and coming artists, bedroom locals, things like that. Maybe not, but I'm going to say most of them are. What is a cheap or free DIY PR thing that these small artists can
Yeah.
do if they lack budgets? They could do it themselves just to maybe help them get a little needle moving in their career.
Great question. And let me say, no one needs to hire me or any PR agency. Breaking it, like, this stuff really isn't rocket science. Any artist or manager or label is capable of doing what I'm doing. I'll break it down for your audience. And like, you know, got like I was saying earlier, if financially it may make more sense to invest time right now into doing this yourself, you know, whereas maybe at some point you can afford to spend some money and then free up your time back into music. But yeah, this stuff is like by no means any kind of like secret proprietary formula. Publicity is all about thinking about the places where you'd like your music to be discovered. And yeah, just like think back on your own experiences. Like, where go into your Spotify library, look at, you know, your 5 most recent liked songs, think, where did I discover, like, where is it that I found each of these tracks? And it's really that simple. You are trying to find the people who can uplift your music and share it with their audiences. And in order to do that, you should probably brainstorm yourself first. There will, I'm sure, be people at the top of your mind who you would love an endorsement from. You know, your fans are fans of this tastemaker, and there will be some real obvious ones. But if you want to kind of grow the list and expand and research new places where you might want to land your music, it's thinking of reference tracks is what I call them. But what songs are recently released that is from an artist of a similar career size to you in a similar genre lane? What songs do you want to see alongside yours in the playlists that you're placed in or the magazines you're written in? And like, you take those tracks, plug them in, and you find every tastemaker who supported it. You know, if you search for all the Spotify playlists that have supported those reference tracks, all the journalists who've written about those reference tracks. And now you got a giant list of people who are, you know, uh, strong potential targets for this stuff because you know they like music similar to yours. And then you just start cold reaching out and building relationships. And, you know, it's even a benefit of doing this sort of thing yourself. Like, I've gotten all these great relationships over the last 4 years doing this, but even if the artists themselves can build those relationships, like, oh, that's so much more compelling. Like a pitch coming from a tastemaker receiving a pitch from me is more compelling than a, a pitch they receive from a random stranger for the first time. But if it was like coming from the artist themselves and they had built a relationship, like I really think that's kind of the strongest pitch you could deliver. So yeah, just like get in the weeds, start DMing people on Instagram, start like sending emails and just put yourself out there. If you target the right people and gain their fandom, they're going to go out and like do the heavy lifting for you. That's all this stuff really is.
I love that.
Yeah.
Man, thanks for coming by. I really enjoyed this interview. And anyone watching
Travis.
looking for PR, reach out to Bradley ASAP.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. I always very much enjoy chatting with you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be on here, man. And yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely.